Hi, I'm Steve from RC Boat Company. This is a how-to video to fit your cowling to the hull. This is a 1/8 scale hull. You can do it with a 1/8 scale or 1/6 gas scale. It's going to be the same process. And this is already done, but just to give you an idea, what you're going to be doing is making a lip to go all the way around, and that lip is going to fit this contour of the boat. And I made this part right in here. What that's going to do is, so when you put the cowling on the boat, it's going to fit right on there, and it's going to keep this front, like from side to side, really snug. You can also do it on the back of the cowling if you wanted to also. So this way, when it fits on there, it can go from side, it'll keep it from going from side to side, but depending on how this is going to be pinned. So that's up to you as you build your boat. So here you can see the blue tape on the top of the hull. This is where it's going to be fitted. I used the blue tape so that you could see. You can use packaging tape, which any packaging. I would recommend a heavy packaging tape, a thick one, and then just coat it with wax, wipe it off real good. Just one coat is all you need on there. So, and you could use any kind of wax. You could use a car wax. I like any kind of paste wax. Just wax it and you'll feel that the surface will be really, really slippery. Here's a view of inside the engine well. Might be kind of hard to see, but you can see the blue tape comes over and then goes down about 1 inch. And I'm going to bring the fiberglass down just kind of maybe about 1/4 inch around. So, and again, this was all waxed. And what that's going to do, that lip is going to keep that cowling very secure on the boat, and it's not going to move from side to side. It's going to be like a perfect fit. Here's the cowling on the hull, and I used a Sharpie to mark all the edges of the outline around the hull to this way. The reason I do that is so this way, when you put the fiberglass down and you wet it all out, you're going to need a mark to know exactly where to mount, to put this cowling on top of the hull, because once it cures, that's where it's always going to go when it's on the boat. And then the other thing I'm going to show you, as I zoom in a little bit, you're going to be able to see the gaps. And you can take a lot of time and sand this. This cowling was made for this hull. This is an original Bill Fritz hull. But you can see there are little gaps all in here, you know, where the cowling meets the boat. Almost see through it a little bit, but so you can sit there and you can sand it, take a block, some 80 grit sandpaper or block sandpaper, and you can sand this and get it really nice, close and fit. That's a great idea, and that's one way of doing it. But this here also, what I'm doing here will make this cowling fit perfectly to the boat. Okay, so we got the tape on, we have the mark for the cowling, and at this point what you're going to want to do is sand the inside of the cowling with some 80 grit sandpaper. Here we are at the next step. I cut the fiberglass out, which I'm going to be laying down on the hull. So this is what's going to get wet out, and then the cowling's going to sit on it. And what I used was 2 layers of 4 ounce. I like the 2 layers of 4 ounce. The reason I like the 4 ounce fiberglass is that because this piece, this shorter piece here, I'm going to wrap around the edge here, and that's what's going to keep the cowling from moving from side to side. It's just going to really lock it in place. The rest of this on the hull is just going to make it a really nice, the cowling fit to the hull really nice, and is up here in this front as well too. So 2 layers of 4 ounce on each one. All right, next we're going to mix up some Cabasil. I'm going to show you and explain that to you, and the resin, and we're going to wet this all out and put the cowling on it. The next step, you're going to mix up some Cabasil with, I use slow epoxy resin with Cabasil, and I make it to where it's like peanut butter. And then what I'm going to do is I did a brush a little area right here. But what you're going to do is you're going to take the Cabasil. I use this little acid brush, And I just basically just put a really thin layer. This will help when you put the fiberglass down. It'll just help you to hold it in place. And what I'm going to do with this cowling is I'm going to make this little area right here have a little lip on it right in here. So it'll just be like approximately 2-3 inches. Like I said, that's going to hold it from side to side. And something else, I'm not going to do it with this cowl because this is a customer's boat. I'm doing it especially for him. You can see the rear deck lid here. You can epoxy the cowling to it to make it all a one piece, but some people like that separate. Everybody's got their own preferences, how you want to set your boat up. And remember, this is your build, so you're going to do it how you want to do it. But this is just to show you kind of a step-by-step how you would make a perfectly fit cowl. Here I'm wetting out the fiberglass. You can see the reason, again, you can see the black mark. You can see it right through the cloth, and as the resin wets it out, you can see where your black mark is. That's going to be important when you set the cowling on top of it. And again, the other thing too I'll point out to you is you might get a little air bubble in there. You can work it out some more. You can put a little bit more Cabasil on it. Part of it is that you got to get the tape really tight to the hull. It's a really nice shape. Otherwise, if you got a little air bubble in here, it's going to cause that. But it's really not going to make a serious problem. I mean, if you want cosmetically, you can go back, sand it, and fill it if it comes out. The main thing is you're just putting a nice little lip on the cowling so that this way it's going to fit really good. Okay, now I got the cowling sitting on top of the hull, and I'm going to show you. You're going to see this white right here. That's the white, a little bit thick here. That's the Cabasil. And what I'll do is I'll just take this and just kind of take a little brush, and I'm going to be filling in the gaps. And remember, you're going to be painting this cowling, sand it. And I put the tape out wide, as you can see, so that gives you room so it's not on the hull. I'm sorry I'm holding this camera, but I'm doing this video trying to keep it as so you're not getting dizzy. But just so you can see, and just fill in those areas, and this just makes a really good, nice seal. And you come back, you cut this all off with a Dremel, sand it flush, and once it's off of here, I'll show you what you do to that part when we get to that part of the video. And then here, I'm just going to come up here, and you can see the gap up front here, which I'm just going to fill with Cabasil. And then you can see how I extended this out here. And the reason I did that is just so you can make this shape here. However, like when you look at the photograph of the real boat, this kind of came right to a nice point. And you can blend it in real good, and you know, and that's how much detail you want to get to the real unlimited hydroplane. Here you can see I have the cowling completely fitted to the hull. I mixed up Cabasil, and I used the Cabasil with the brush, and I literally just put a little bit on here and just kept filling as I go all the way down. And then here, if you can see how the white in here, there was probably an 1/8 to a 16-inch gap in here, and I filled it all with Cabasil. And again, like I said, plenty of tape out here, gives you plenty of room to work. When you see when I pop this off, it's just going to cut all that off, and this is going to get sanded nice and flush. And this piece up here, like I said, I wanted to take that, make it more to a point, fill it in. You could fill it with a little bit of Cabasil. You can fill it with some Mondo if you wanted to, some fillers, other fillers, whatever you use. And one other very important thing, when you're using any of your Cabasil, or if you're using West Systems and you're using their fillers, and there's all different kinds of fillers they have, just be sure to use the slow, because what happens is when Cabasil, it gets into a ball, the resin, because it's in such a small area, will get really hot and it'll kick off a lot faster. So that's why I kind of spread it out in this tray here, or in this bowl, so that this way it's not concentrated into a little ball. So, but you definitely need to use slow with any kind of filler, so that this way it will not kick off so fast. And so there you go. So I'm gonna let this sit for at least 24 hours to let it kick off really good. Then I'm gonna take one little wedge, put it up underneath here, and you can see this thing. I'll show you the video of it popping off. Now we're gonna get ready to pop the cowling off. It's actually been 48 hours since I started this project, and the longer you let it cure, the better it is. It's not gonna hurt it. Again, temperature in your shop got to be, you know, here it's 76. It was 80 degrees when I started. The tools you're gonna need to pop it off, like a wood chisel. I've had this one forever. You can use you're gonna need like a plastic one afterwards. I used a wood chisel first. You're not gonna have to have one of these, but it just makes it a little bit easier. I use a wood chisel because it just makes it easier to kind of get underneath and pry it up. And you can see out here that this fiberglass is it's not as, it hasn't cured 100%, and plus it's really not that thick either. So that's why it's going to bend a little bit here. And like I said, you just take your wood putty knife or chisel and just go right underneath. And I kind of ran along here, but you'll see it'll break loose as I get closer up here. You can even hear it make a little noise. And as you go, this will just literally just come up real easy. So once I get that part, and I'm going to go around, I'm going to do the other side. And then once I got it all pretty much loose, because where it's still stuck pretty good is on the inside there. And that's when I'll take like a bigger one like this here, and I'll just take it, and you can even take like a little hammer and just tap it, and just go slow with this. You'll see it'll go, and all of a sudden it'll pop right off. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, break it all loose, and then we'll come back and we'll pop off the cowling completely. So as I use a bigger wedge and get it up underneath the cowling, like I said, you work it all the edges, kind of get them loose, and just keep running this down here. And you just take another hand. Your other hand, you can hold the boat down and just kind of work that. You can hear it crackle. Kind of push it a little bit, go from one side to the other side. Kind of get underneath it. And you see it's starting to really come loose. Got one little spot up here. Okay. And there's your cowling. Yeah, so now that we got the cowling free, I just kind of laid the tools out here. This is how I'll use for some of the grinding. Just on the inside, again, you can use a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. There's all kinds of cutoff wheels that you can use. So I definitely use most of this with the grinder or the cut wheel. I use the cut wheel. If I'm going to grind, I'll use this one with a pretty aggressive wheel on it. This one, I'll usually go with the 80 grit. This one's kind of more vibrates and for finishing up to get a little bit closer to the cowling. Again, we used a wood putty knife to break it loose, and I like the nice big wedge because it's just easier to handle and you can kind of work it. But you know, if you got a smaller one, you can still do it. And I've been talking about car wax, but I use this Pardal paste wax, waxing molds and everything. So that was the wax I used on this. But you at home, you probably don't do molds. If you do, you can use any of your mold release, or like I said, a car wax will work just fine. I've done it with car wax, Meguiar's, or one of those paste wax, and wax this up real good. And you can see your tape it's still all right there, you know. So you just peel the tape off and everything's good to go. You don't have any cleanup on the boat. And next, I'm gonna go ahead and do the cowling. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. I make a mark and you can still see the line. It picked up the Sharpie marker on the cowling. So using that line, I go in about 1/4 of an inch on the inside here, make a line, and then I cut it to leave it on the inside, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a little piece of fiberglass on the inside with some Cabasil, just to make, because you have just that little, basically a very small, what you're gluing to, so a very small surface. So I like to build up that surface underneath there so that this stays, you know, really strong there. And then you can see too here on the where it actually fits into the boat. These are what's going to keep the cowling from moving from side to side. It's going to stop it from going forward. And again, you can put a little block of wood in the nose and pin it, or however you want to do it, or add more fiberglass. So again, that's when you're doing your build. But here's the cowling. I said you just take the cowling, and it just literally, when you put it on there, you just set that on there, and it kind of, it's like a shoebox fit, just it'll fit. And then again, if you wanted to wrap a piece over the back, keep it from going from side to side when you put your cowling on. Just depends on, you know, how much you want to really get into it, or how you decide how you want to pin this cowl, how you put fasteners you want to use. But that gives you a really good idea. So, okay, I'll go ahead and trim this up, and you will be all ready for continuing on with the next part of your build. Epoxy with slow hardener, and then I have the fiberglass. This is 3 ounce. You can use 4 ounce. I had this 3 ounce, just a little bit easier to use. And what I'm going to do is just take the Cabasil and just fill just that little radius in there. So this way, when I put this cloth on top, it'll just make a nice little curve, and it'll really give a good bond in here. You don't need a really wide piece, just enough to help make a little bit of strength in there. And I'll get that all filled in, put that fiberglass on, let it cure, then you're off to mounting it to the hull. You can see in the front that there's Cabasil. I put a thin bead Cabasil to fill the radius, and then I laid the 3 ounce cloth on it. And when I do that, I just first set it on there, and there's just a little bit of resin that I mixed up. But I'll first take and let the cloth soak up any of the resin. And you can see it does. And then when you wet it, you'll see it just all become really clear. Make it really nice. When you come back, you can again run some 80 grit just for any hairs that have sticking out.